James is a theist, he, him pronouns, and wants to ask us some questions, it sounds like. Hey, James, you're on Atheist Experience with SR and Armin. What is up?
Hi. So I didn't expect this to be like... So this is like... Can I ask questions that are unrelated?
Of course.
To what the topic was?
Go ahead.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, it's your topic now. You choose the topic now.
We'll rein you in if you get too wild, but I'm not expecting it.
Okay, do you guys think that atheists have more questions that need to be answered, or theists, Christians in specific?
Christians.
What kind of questions?
That's my answer.
I mean, related to God? Yes. In general, I don't know. I don't know what the global average of the number of questions is between
That's probably
Christians and atheists.
that's a fair distinction, Armin. Yeah, just like in general about life itself, I don't know. They're probably about the same, but specifically when it comes to religion, yeah, definitely the Christians.
Yeah, I mean, atheists just have what unites atheists when it comes to their position on God is just like one. It's a very simple thing, right?
Right. Right.
If there are any other, if atheists have more opinions or questions beyond not believing in God, that is not necessarily anything to do. Like that's not necessarily part of their atheism. That's just part of being human and having questions. And you see that with atheists, Muslims, and Christians. But atheists, James, do you know an atheist is basically somebody who just lacks a belief in God? Do you accept that, or do you accept that definition?
Yeah, that's the definition of an atheist. An atheist is somebody who doesn't believe in God, but I was just wondering, because I mean, like, with the Big Bang and stuff like that, I know there are some Christians who believe exactly what I believe, who believe in things like the Big Bang, and just like, how could that stuff come from nothing? Because I mean, like, the Bible clearly says, Genesis 1:1, in the beginning, that's time, God created the heavens, that's space, and
but you're already accepting something that isn't necessary to accept, right? So if you take away some of those assumptions that the Bible brings you, then some of these questions that you think need to be answered don't actually need to be answered because the questions aren't relevant to begin with. But go ahead, Armin.
Yeah, I understand. Okay, so James, let me know if this helps. Okay, in general, I think that Christians or believers, theists and atheists have almost on average, if I guess, have the same number of questions on average. However, it is true that theists have more answers. Okay. However, are they the correct answers, right? People that don't have the God did it answer as an option, they are probably, if you are saying that they have less answers, it's true. They are probably more likely to say, I don't know, to certain Christians that theists would say, yes, I know, I have the answer. So the questions, the difference between the number of questions, I don't think atheists and theists are any different. But when it comes to answers, I do agree with you. If this is what you're saying, that if the claim is that theists have more answers, that is, I think, true. However, having more answers is not necessarily a good thing, especially if they are the wrong answers, right? It's better between having a wrong answer and not having an answer. I would choose not having an answer. So there's three options you could have here: having the correct answer, having the wrong answer, not having an answer. So the best one here is having the correct answer. The second best is not having an answer and saying, I don't know. But the worst one is having an answer and being the wrong answer and thinking that is the correct answer. Do you agree with that?
So are you saying
prioritization?
You can give a rebuttal, or just because you can give an answer doesn't necessarily mean it's right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course. Do you agree with that, James, yourself? Like, yes, if we say that the theists do have more answers, but those are not necessarily, do you agree that those are not necessarily the correct answers? They could just be wrong answers. Do you agree with that? It could be the wrong answers.
Yes, I agree. I mean, I don't think that they are. I mean, I understand what you're saying, just like when it comes to like answers and stuff like that. How just because I can give some sort of rebuttal doesn't mean it's the right answer. Like,
right. Because James, there seems to be a lot of theists seem to me that they just see value in having an answer rather than not having an answer. They think this is a superior position. So if you have person A saying you have a question and person A saying I don't know, and person B saying I know, here's the answer, a lot of theists think like, okay, the person B is in a superior position. And that's why a lot of theists were like, isn't it good to have religion? Because religion provides you with answers. But this is with the assumption that having answers is a good thing, not realizing that those answers could be wrong, and that is not a superior position to be in.
And so often, well, hang on a sec. So often I find that the answers, quote unquote, that are given by the religious actually bring up so many more questions, right? So the answer to the question of where did everything come from is God, right? That's the answer. The problem is now we have to ask the question, what is this God? What are the attributes of this God? Well, then somebody can give me the answer there, and they say, well, this God is all powerful. This God is all loving. And I go, well, how do you know that? How do you demonstrate that? And the questions keep coming. Whereas oftentimes, not exclusively, of course, though, oftentimes a lot of the answers that are given on the non-religious side don't have those extra layer of questions. Like, hey, I get that, like, a quantum scalar field and the vacuum, a false vacuum state and all that shit, that's confusing and it's weird and it takes a while to like wrap your brain around and stuff. But it isn't ultimately stuff that is still a question mark. It is actually an explanation because it has expanded the idea in such a way where it is made plain, made known to us. That doesn't happen oftentimes when we get answers from theists. It's just, well, it's a soul. And it's like, well, what the fuck is the soul? How does the soul interact with the brain? How does that work? And so when you get answers from the religious side, I just feel like they just have more questions.
Well, like when you said, what are the attributes of this God? And like you were talking about, like, you said, well, how could the universe come from nothing? Are you also like implying like maybe like where did God come from also?
I mean, that can be something in there, but I don't even think it's necessary. I don't even think you have to go to that space. I just feel like you need to demonstrate why this God would have the particular attributes that you've laid out as opposed to the infinite other options. The problem is not necessarily, what the attributes are, but why they're not something else. Because then what you have is you have some type of constraint on this entity that is supposed to be unconstrained. It's the same thing when somebody comes up and they want to talk about how God can do all things, right? And then you ask if God can do anything illogical or that violates the laws of logic, right? The vast majority of people that are in this space on the theist side now won't take the bait. And they'll say, well, no, of course not. And then they'll just alter their language to say maximally powerful, maximally knowing, and so forth, right? But again, that still doesn't really answer the question. It just doesn't put you into the pitfalls of you have an entity that somehow violates logic. Because if you're just going to bite the bullet and say, well, my God is illogical or can be illogical, well, then it's like, oh, cool. You've just basically argued for the non-existence of your God,
Yeah, well, and I think what you're also like, I mean, I don't want to assume anything, but like when it comes to like why choose this among the infinite other options, pretty much, I think then we'd have to go to like, because especially when it comes to like trying to prove God, and I know that I've seen like some shorts from your guys' show where you guys will like ask for like maybe not like necessarily scientific evidence, be like, okay, you said that, but like now could you like demonstrate or something like that? So like I think we'd have to go to the Bible before we could like try and prove God.
Why would you go to the Bible?
Like that? Because
why would you use the Bible as a method to demonstrate God?
Because we'd have to prove the Bible so we can know what the Bible saying is true. Because if God is an immaterial being, you can't use a material method to prove it.
Well, hang on. Let's hold off on the immaterial aspect for a second there. But yeah, because the Bible says all this stuff about God, yeah, if you're going to utilize the Bible as a way to demonstrate the existence of God, you probably need a solid foundation about the truth of the Bible. Here's the problem with a lot of that. what would you do? What would you do to prove or disprove or give us any type of indication one way or the other as to whether or not a man named Abraham once took his child up to the top of a mountain and attempted to slaughter him in broad daylight, only for an angel to appear to speak to them both and say, "Nuh-uh, don't do that. God was testing." What would you do there? What demonstration?
Let's see what James has to say.
Yeah.
Let's see what James has to say. James, how would you figure out that the Bible is true?
So, like, are you talking about just using that, or just like the whole Bible in general? I mean, like, I don't think you.
Any example?
Like just whatever you think is. Give me your best. Mm-hmm. Give me the best way that we could demonstrate that the Bible is a good source of, the claims can be verified, or I don't know, that is whatever it says is true.
Well, when it comes to like science, like scientifically, or just like trying to prove the Bible using like something like that, like observing, like maybe the area like where these things took place. Some of these things like the miracles of Jesus, because like the Gospels are some of the most important places, or some of the most important writings in the whole Bible. And the miracles.
So James, you're saying because Bible refers to places that actually do exist, therefore all of its claims are true?
No, because I could say that New York is a real place. The Spider-Man exists. I mean, of course, we don't see evidence of Spider-Man, so I guess you couldn't really say that. But that's not what I'm
good. So you understand? Okay, so what? So you are saying? So you were just saying that the Bible refers to real historical places. Okay, so but you gave us a great examples for that. That's not a good way of showing that the Bible is true. So what is the point then?
No, well, it wasn't. I don't think I got to finish what I was saying. Though, was that some of these things that the Bible mentions, like the miracles of Jesus, which the Bible says, which would prove he is God. I'm saying, like, we would have to probably prove the crucifixion. And so I'm saying, like, we could study these areas where it supposedly happened.
So.
No, not the crucifixion. Not the crucifixion.
I don't think we have to go anywhere else. Yeah,
I'm completely willing to accept that there was a guy who was crucified. Okay, that's not very significant. Okay, the part that you need to show is the main part of the story is after, where he's raising from the dead. For sure.
But neither of those events in Jesus's life has anything to do with whether or not rubbing mud and spit into a person's eyes cures blindness, right? We don't need to be worried about whether or not Jesus died and rose again 3 days later, right? We don't need to worry about that at all when it comes to curing leprosy, right? What could we do to demonstrate whether or not that miracle as presented in the Bible is more or less true? Is there anything that we could do?
How about we stick with the resurrection, because he was about to provide us like the resurrection, or any of the other miracles. But here, James, we will give you, me and Elliot will give you this. We will give you that he was a real person, that this is a book that refers to historically places that actually exist. This guy was crucified by the Romans, okay? All of the parts that could have, like, there's no abides by the laws of physics as we know it and biology as we know it, we will grant you all of that happened, and those parts, the parts that the Bible is referring to, are completely accurate. Okay, let's assume that. Okay, can you tell us how can we verify that the miracle parts, like for example the raising from the dead or the miracles that Elliot just referred to, can you figure out a way for us to verify those parts?
Well, usually, like, this is what I was saying, because, like, when it comes to trying to verify it, and, like, if we were, like, go to that area itself, because you could say, oh, well, there's writings, but then again, like, how do we prove those writings? So if we were, like, try to find some evidence of, like, maybe say archaeological evidence that says clearly almost, like, this is it, this couldn't be anything else, like, it'd be kind of hard to do, like you were saying, like, the mud.
Well, do you have any? Okay, do you have any of that? Do you have anything that shows us? Do you have any? Give us a verifiable evidence that any of this happened.
Well, I mean, we do have the places where, no, I'm not saying like archaeological evidence, but we do have a tomb that is said to be it, and it's in the exact right spot. But also,
that doesn't tell us anything. That doesn't tell us any. That doesn't tell us that Jesus rose from the dead.
I know, that's what I'm saying. if you were to make this up or something like that, so you said granting that this is true, but I'm just saying, like, would you make yourself, if you were to make this up though, would you make yourself look bad or would you make yourself look good?
First one.
Bad to make it believe, some bad and some good to make it believable. Mix of bad and good.
It's a standard tactic used in communication to large groups of people. You humble yourself in front of the crowd so as to make yourself seem more on their level, even though you're clearly on the stage with all the laser lights behind you. It's just a standard tactic that we as humans have utilized for literally millennia.
Also, given that some of these events are based on reality, as we accept it, some of the parts that look bad was because in reality, bad things happen to them, right?
Yeah.
So
and
there
also
because the story, we are not claiming that the story is completely made up. We're claiming that the story is partly made up. And given that part of the stories are real, some of the things that are embarrassing, it could be because the story is based in reality.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think
so
something that would be... Go ahead.
So, like, the main part that we're trying to prove here, like, the main thing, like, because the resurrection, not just, like, the crucifixion, because, sure, he could have been crucified, but, like, the resurrection, because him rising is what would show that he's true. It even says in 1 Corinthians 15:14, for if Christ has not been raised, our preaching is useless, and so is your faith. So even the Bible admits that if this event has not happened, then we're us as Christians, not you.
But how is that embarrassing? But it claims that it did. But it claims also that it did happen. So what's the problem here? James, before we say anything, do you honestly think that you have mentioned anything that actually shows that Jesus was resurrected? Like, honestly, do you think like anything you say or have said is convincing for anybody to believe that the miracle parts of the Bible are real? Like, honestly yourself, I just want to know, how do you evaluate your arguments here yourself?
I was just saying that would be, since some of these things were smaller, they weren't like huge global events, that finding some specific thing that would prove 100% or like would be harder to find.
We're not asking for James, we're not asking for 100%. We're asking for enough evidence to make it justifiable to believe in it, right? Many things that we believe in, we don't have certainty. We just have enough evidence that it makes sense for us to believe in it. That's all. We don't want 100%. We just want any source of evidence that will make believing in it justifiable. It's definitely going to be below 100%. How about this? If you could give me above 50, I will believe in it. You don't have to get me to 100%. Just give me above 50. Do you have any evidence that could give me above 50?
Beyond a reasonable doubt?
No, not beyond reasonable. No. I'm just saying above 50%.
Yeah.
Just get me to 50.1%. Okay? Can you get me there? I don't need you to get me 100, not 99, not 80. Just anything that is more likely true than not. How about that?
You're right. I am still studying, but I will do the best I can because like I'm only about almost 16. But I'm still studying this stuff. But I think that we can show. Like I was trying to say, like about how it would kind of make somebody look back, especially since like the tomb was found by women, but then you guys said that that is a tactic that we've been using for millennia. Make yourself look bad. You humble yourself.
So women were the ones who prepared the bodies at that time. So of course women would be the first people to go see a dead body because the women were the one in that area of the world who prepared the dead bodies for the funerals. So that wouldn't be embarrassing.
Also, James, Elliot and I are not saying these are the explanations, okay? We're just saying that there are many. You haven't exhausted all other possible options. You act like, oh, this happened. How could it be this? How could it not be this? And when Elliot is giving you these other options, it's not to say that this is the reason, but to demonstrate to you that you haven't demonstrated that the option that you're you're giving us is the only viable one, especially because yours requires supernatural. We could sit here and come up with 1,000 different explanations, for the next 10 hours. Okay, we could come up with explanations without any of them requiring the laws of physics and biology to be violated. Right. So you have an option. Here's the thing. I will admit this. Your explanation could be true. Okay. It's just not as likely, given for that to be true, everything that we know about how the universe operates needs to be wrong for your option to be the correct one. Right. I could come up with a million other explanations, none of them requiring that. Do you see why we consider your explanation unlikely?
How do you know that the supernatural can't happen? That you can't rule out technically, though. I mean, what? Well,
I didn't rule it out.
Hang on,
I did not rule it out. I did not rule it out. I specifically said your explanation could be true. I just find it unlikely, given that we have observed the universe and it seems to be operating in certain ways consistently, okay? And it's very unlikely for that to all of a sudden be violated over here. Did I say it's impossible? No, I did not say. You know what? You also saying it's very unlikely because you call it a miracle. That's a definition of a miracle for it to be extremely unlikely. So you are giving me an option that by the definition of the word miracle has to be an unlikely event. And you're asking me how likely is it for an unlikely event to happen? And I will answer you unlikely.
Yeah. What? And hang on just a second, James. I just muted you for a second. So one of the things I've heard you say kind of repeatedly, and I think it's worth thinking about this framing. You said to Armin, you can't rule out the supernatural. But the question you need to ask yourself is, why are you ruling it in to begin with? What information has been given to you that makes this supernatural a viable option? Because I believe very much so, and I think Armin is right there with me, that when you investigate that information that you are utilizing as justification for ruling in the supernatural, what you'll come to find is it doesn't actually give you that justification. And we've been going on for a little bit with you, James.
I want to say something to James. Okay, James, I want to say that you are doing a good job. I don't want to make you feel bad about asking these questions, okay? Totally. You are investigating whether your opinions, your views are correct or not, okay? So I might be getting emotional and passionate here but I just want to congratulate you for feeling that you need to go and talk to people who disagree with you and to consider their opinions about your opinions, okay? That is something that needs to be celebrated, so I want to congratulate you on that.
Absolutely, and I wholeheartedly second that, James. And so please give it another week or so. Give us a call back. I know Armin and I will be on again before too long. So yeah, go listen back to this after it gets posted and listen to those specific questions we were asking about, why you're justified in this conclusion and so forth. And give us a call back, man, and talk with some more on it. Because really, I thought this was a really great call. And again, very much agree with you, Armin. I'm glad you said that. It is awesome. I think you were on the right path, James. So